For centuries, the Roman army stood as one of the most powerful forces the world had ever seen. Thousands of soldiers marched under the eagle standard, crossing deserts, mountains, forests, and rivers to expand the borders of the empire. Their shields locked together, their sandals striking the roads in perfect rhythm, their lives bound to discipline and duty. History often remembers the victories of Rome, the famous battles, the generals, the emperors who commanded vast legions. But there is a quieter question that history rarely stops to ask. What happened to the soldiers when they grew too old to fight? What became of the men who had spent decades marching across the empire when their strength slowly faded and younger recruits took their place in the ranks? The life of a Roman soldier was not a short chapter. When a young man joined the legions, he was not signing up for a few years of service. He was committing most of his life. During the height of the Roman Empire, a legionary usually served around 25 years. Imagine entering the army as a teenager, barely stepping into adulthood, and knowing that you would remain within its strict system for the next quarter century. 25 years of marching across unfamiliar lands, guarding cold frontiers, constructing forts in distant provinces, and obeying orders without hesitation. For many soldiers, the army became everything they knew. It shaped the way they walked, the way they spoke, the way they saw the world around them. The Legion was not just a military unit. It was a brotherhood, a home, and often the only family they had for decades. But time moves forward for everyone, even the strongest warriors. As the years passed, the once young recruit slowly became an experienced veteran. The marches that once felt effortless began to feel longer. The armor that once felt light started to weigh heavier on the shoulders. Younger soldiers began to fill the ranks, bringing energy and speed that older veterans could no longer match. Rome understood this reality well. An army that relied only on youth could be powerful, but an empire that ignored its veterans would eventually lose the loyalty of the men who fought for it. So the Roman system created something that was surprisingly advanced for the ancient world. When a soldier completed his full service, he was not simply dismissed and forgotten. Instead, he received a reward for his decades of loyalty. One of the most important rewards was a document known as a military diploma. This was not just a simple piece of paper. It was a carefully engraved bronze certificate that proved the soldier had served Rome faithfully. With that document came freedom from military duty and the rights of a Roman citizen if he did not already have them. But the reward did not end there. Many veterans also received land. Often this land was located in newly conquered territories where Rome wanted to strengthen its influence. Entire settlements were created, specifically for retired soldiers. These places were known as veteran colonies. Imagine a town filled almost entirely with men who had once marched in the same armies, who had stood side by side during distant campaigns, who understood the same discipline and traditions. In these colonies, the former soldiers began a new chapter of life. Instead of carrying shields and spears, they now carried farming tools. Instead of building temporary forts, they built permanent homes for themselves and their families. But this new life was not always easy. Many veterans had been away from their original homes for 25 years. The village they were born in might have changed completely. Parents had grown old or passed away. Friends had moved on. Even the streets they once knew could feel unfamiliar. In many cases, returning home simply was not possible anymore. That is why Rome encouraged veterans to settle in these new colonies. They were places where the soldiers could start again among people who shared the same experiences. Yet even in retirement, their role within the empire did not completely end. Veteran colonies were often placed in strategic locations near important roads or borders. This meant that although the soldiers were no longer officially serving in the army, their presence still helped maintain stability in the region. A town filled with experienced former legionaries was not an easy place for troublemakers to challenge. Their training, discipline, and reputation alone could discourage unrest. In a quiet way, the veterans continued protecting the empire even after they laid down their weapons. But adjusting to peaceful life was not always simple. A man who had spent most of his adult life following strict routines might suddenly find himself waking up with no orders to follow. No morning formations, no commanders giving instructions, no long marches across rough terrain. The silence of ordinary life could feel strange after decades of military rhythm. Some veterans struggled with this sudden freedom. They were used to living alongside dozens of fellow soldiers in tightly organized camps. Now they lived in small houses surrounded by farmland. Instead of hearing the sounds of marching boots, they heard the wind moving through the fields. Some veterans found comfort by gathering with others who had served in the legions. They would meet in taverns or public squares, sharing stories about distant provinces and long campaigns. Stories about deserts where the heat seemed endless, mountains covered in snow, and cities filled with unfamiliar languages and customs. These conversations connected them to the past they had lived together. Only another veteran could truly understand what those years had been like. Not every aging soldier retired immediately when his time was complete. Some remained within the military system in different roles. The Roman army valued experience deeply, and older soldiers often became instructors. They trained new recruits who had just joined the legions, teaching them the skills that could not easily be written in manuals. How to maintain discipline during long campaigns. How to recognize danger before it appeared. How to move and fight as part of a tightly organized unit. These older instructors carried knowledge gathered over decades of service. Their lessons helped shape the next generation of soldiers who would continue defending the empire. Other experienced veterans were given positions of honor within their units. One of the most respected roles was that of the standard bearer. This soldier carried the sacred eagle of the legion. The eagle was more than a symbol. It represented the pride, loyalty, and identity of the entire unit. Losing it was considered a terrible disgrace. Because of this responsibility, the role was usually given to a trusted and experienced soldier, often someone who had already served for many years. Standing near the center of the formation, the standard bearer reminded every soldier around him of the history and reputation of their legion. Even as his strength began to fade with age, his presence held deep meaning for the younger men beside him. The Roman army also depended heavily on engineering and construction. Soldiers built roads that stretched across continents, bridges that crossed powerful rivers, and forts that guarded distant borders. As some soldiers grew older, they shifted toward these kinds of responsibilities. Their years of experience made them valuable supervisors and planners. They knew how to organize large groups of workers and ensure projects were completed efficiently. In this way, aging soldiers helped build the physical structure of the empire itself. Many of the roads and fortifications that allowed Rome to control such vast territory were guided by the steady hands of veterans who had once marched across those same lands. As the decades continued to pass, these veterans gradually became the elders of their communities. In their towns and colonies, they carried memories of events that younger generations had never witnessed. Children growing up in those settlements often listened with fascination as the old soldiers described distant places they had seen. places where the climate, landscapes, and people were completely different from their quiet town. Through these stories, the past remained alive. The veterans became living connections between everyday life and the enormous empire that surrounded them. Their experiences shaped the culture of the communities where they lived. They introduced Roman customs, laws, and building styles to regions far from the city of Rome itself. In this way, the influence of the Roman army spread far beyond the battlefield. It quietly shaped towns and societies across the empire. Eventually, every soldier reached the final stage of life. The once powerful warrior who had marched thousands of miles now moved more slowly through the streets of his town. The armor he once wore proudly rested somewhere as a reminder of earlier years. The loud rhythm of marching boots had long since faded from his daily life. Instead, there were quiet mornings, conversations with neighbors, and evenings spent remembering the journeys of the past. For many veterans, there was a quiet satisfaction in knowing that they had played a part in something far larger than themselves. The empire that stretched across continents had been built by countless soldiers like them. Each man had carried his shield, followed his orders, and contributed to the vast system that allowed Rome to endure for centuries. In the end, the story of Rome was not only about famous battles and powerful emperors. It was also about the ordinary soldiers who gave decades of their lives to the empire. Young men who became veterans, veterans who became elders, and elders who quietly passed their memories on to the next generation. When Roman soldiers became too old to fight, they did not simply disappear from history. Many became farmers, builders, teachers, and leaders within their communities. They helped shape the provinces where they settled, spreading Roman culture across distant lands. The empire marched forward because of young soldiers filled with strength and ambition, but it endured because of the wisdom and stability provided by those who had already walked that long road. Long after the battles were over and the legions had moved on, the veterans remained behind, carrying the spirit of Rome into the quiet corners of the world they had helped create.